Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode number 5 of Values Unpacked. Unpacking truth and inspiring purpose and building lives one conversation at a time.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm John Chester Innes. I'm one of your co-hosts, and I'm here with Irving Henry today. Today, we were supposed to have had Mrs. Cathy Lewis Butler, our veteran educator and assistant principal out of the District of Columbia Public Schools. But unfortunately, the tool that she needed to use to have that conversation with us today, it is not working too well for her, and so we've asked her to rest her voice, and we've also promised you that she will be on with us on our next program. Nonetheless, Irving and I know you would like to have a particular conversation with us today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce that conversation with us today?
Sure. By the way, I just, again, so sorry that our scheduled guest today was not able to make it on. We feel so sorry about that, and we just want to wish her a speedy recovery so that she
Absolutely.
can be well enough to come back with us. But John, we again we're talking about values here, and one of the things that has been on my mind as we think about values. Is the meaning of a good name. What does a good
Mm-hmm.
name mean to us, right? What
Mm-hmm.
do we mean when we say you must have a good name? When you hear that question, what comes to your mind?
Well, and let me just say before I answer that question, I know, folk, you are joining us, you're viewing our live. Please feel free to interact with us, especially if you're a subscriber. You should be able to interact with us more readily. And so we're going to ask that you please go ahead and post your comments, post your questions. I know one of our viewers was asking about posting a particular comment or a question or something like that during last week's episode and wasn't able to do that or wasn't sure about what to do. So we're asking you
Hmm.
all to post your comments. This here is not just a conversation between Irving and I, or among Irving, myself, and whatever guests that we have on. But we want our viewers to feel part of this experience. We want you to own this experience as well and be a part of our community. So we would encourage you to encourage us by posting your comments, your questions. Give us some
That's right.
positive feedback so that we can continue growing. So, Irvin, you asked a question. What's in a good name, and immediately my mind went to the two issues of character and reputation.
Mm.
uh, especially when it comes to public sphere, like how do we view people? Why do we view them the way we view them? And how do people view us? How do people see us? And that's for
Hmm.
me more personal. Like, what makes people see me in a positive light or a negative light? What do I do to cause people to see me in either a positive or negative light? So I always, when I think about a good name, I want to look at maybe what actions do we perpetuate both in the public and private sphere that cause people to maybe view us in a certain way. So, to answer your question, those are, some things that I think about when it comes to the
Hmm.
what's in a good name question. And let me say this, when everything that we have, and we're all, you know in various ways accomplished people, but when everything that we have, is taken away from us, if our home is taken away, if our car is taken away, if our position at whatever job, whatever profession we're in, when that is taken away, if our title is taken away, or
Mhm.
accomplishments are taken away, like what do we have remaining that can really be the foundation of who we are, who people see us as, and so on. So, I think about those things. Again, these are all underpinned by issues of character and integrity. And let me say this before you continue, Irving.
Mhm.
A lot of times we think, and I've learned this lesson the hard way. We think that our name is synonymous with our title or our profession,
Mhm.
but it is not, because when those things go or they're taken away from you, all that you really have is your name, right? All that you really have is
Yeah.
who you are, what comprises your identity. And we want people who are our viewers, we want you to also chime in, Tell us, when you think about what's in a good name, what does that mean to you? And we'll have that discussion with you today.
So I I immediately start thinking about a conversation my grandfather had with me, John, when we
Hmm.
talk about a good name, and based on your response about character and reputation. I was dating a young lady, and I don't know, somehow my grandfather found out. I don't know. I
Hmm.
was kind of thought my relationship with this young lady was in the dark, at least to him,
Uh-huh.
right? But he found out, and one day he came to me and said, just be careful of that family. And
Wow.
that's all he said, right? Just be careful of that family. And right away I understood what he meant, right?
Hmm.
I didn't have to ask any questions. I knew what he meant, because this particular family had a particular reputation in the
Hmm.
community.
Hmm.
And so that has been cemented in my mind,
Hmm.
ever since,
Hmm.
40 something years ago, when I was, still a teenager. And
Wow.
in our family, you know family is something that is big. And so
Absolutely.
I started to think, yeah, how do I protect the family's name,
Hmm.
right? Who do I associate with that can bring disrepute to my family? And so as I grew up, I always had it in my head that my family name is important. I have to
Hmm.
represent this brand. And when you think about um, McDonald's, Wendy's, Costco, Walmart, they have a name, they have a brand that they must protect.
Yes. Yes.
And so if something goes wrong, right? If a customer is unhappy, they do everything they can to make sure that customer is satisfied. They don't
Yeah.
want their name out there in the public sphere. They certainly don't want to make the news,
Hmm.
right? I worked in retail in the past, and one of the things they told us, like, always make your customer happy, right?
Hmm.
And I see that as protecting the good name of the company. And the same with family, the same with us individually. We have a name to protect, a reputation to preserve. And so that is the background with which I'm asking this question, right?
But
Because a
what is
good
that?
name.
What you're talking about reputation?
Mhm,
What is reputation really? What is that thing that's
mhm.
called reputation?
So yeah, so to me is the brand that you build, right? The
Okay.
ideal that you set. So when someone look at you, they know that there's a certain standard to which you aspire, and if you go be below that, then something is wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you present yourself in public tells the story about who you are. And so if you are accustomed to buttoning up your shirt all the way to the top every time, or you're always seen in public, with a suit and tie, and one day you're in a t-shirt, like, and or polo, like we are relaxed now. People begin to wonder, wait, what's going on with,
What's going
with John,
on?
or what's going on with
Okay.
Irving today? Like something must be going wrong, something must be going on with them. So your reputation is very, very important to your brand. And I just want to bring this in, John, because we are, even though we're not making this into a religious thing, but I think it's important for us because of our faith, to include this. Um, in the book of Proverbs 22:1, it says, "A good name is more desirable than great riches, and to
Mhm.
be esteemed is better than silver
Mhm.
and gold." Let that sink in for a moment, because I'm sure we can think of 10 people, 5 people, 10 people, maybe even 100 people that have money or have riches in our eyes,
Mhm.
but have terrible reputations.
Mhm.
So what the wise man is saying in Proverbs here is that a good name is even better than having riches, even though we know having money does a lot of things for you, right?
So,
But a good name is built over time. It's not something that just happens, right? Is a decision that you make that often is not seen by others, right? The private choices that you make, when people are not watching, what they're not seeing behind the scenes,
mhm.
that's what builds a good reputation.
So here's my disagreement with that.
Mhm.
Reputation is what we try to build for the world to see. Um,
Mhm.
and I know sometimes it's easy to kind of mix the two up, but reputation is what we build. You talk about brand.
Mhm.
It's a brand that we build. And trust me, all of these brands that you would have referenced before, I am sure that, if we might have never worked in those places, you know, whatever they are, and we just associate these places by, what they're known by. Maybe you talk about the fast food industry and so on, or maybe
Right.
just fashion industry. But I'm sure that behind closed doors, that there might be stuff happening that um, may not necessarily be may not meet the bar of morality, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And
absolutely,
I
absolutely.
want to say that a good name is more it's more synonymous with one's character, which is always standard. It's never changing, maybe improving, but never changing. Um,
Hmm.
because when we look at reputation, it is how people see you, maybe even how you make yourself out for people to see you.
Hmm.
And so that is what is associated with you. But behind closed
You know,
doors, it's something else.
I agree. I know you said you disagree with me, but I agree with you there. But
Uh,
let me explain why, even though even though there seemed to be a little bit discrepancy. I agree with you, but here's what I'm thinking.
mhm.
If your reputation, if what you're doing behind closed door is not in congruence with what you portray in public, at
Outside.
some point that is going to crack, right? Over time, it's
Absolutely.
going to crack. It's not going to hold
Absolutely.
up,
Yeah.
right? It's not going to hold up. It's going to reveal itself, because
Absolutely.
these very companies that I alluded to
Hmm.
earlier, we have seen cracks. We have seen cracks in their reputation,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
the true character shows up when certain things are revealed, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, it's I think we are on the same page
Yeah.
in
No,
a
no,
way,
I'm
but I think you're seeing
absolutely,
things. Yeah.
yeah, I'm absolutely certain we are. And, as we're, let's say just good morning to Faith. You wish us good morning, Faith and Chester Ernest, one of our viewers. Good morning to you. Um, when I was growing up, we weren't necessarily well off. My parents
Mm-hmm.
had a shop in the village, and there was, as little kids, we always wanted something, whether it was candy or something out of the shop.
Yeah.
And they would always say to us, "Be contented. You must be contented." And that is one thing that has always stuck with me throughout life, that, no matter what um, is there, that I must always be
Mm-hmm.
contented. And so, when we talk about reputation versus character versus a good name, um, there were a lot of people in the village who carried my name, especially the Innis brand. And
Yeah.
there were some very notable Innises um, who were part of, what, and this is subjective to me. You don't have to agree with it. Nobody has to nation
Mm-hmm.
building. And so,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when it came to that brand, people were known for for being honest, hardworking, very dedicated, and so on. So I had naturally gravitated towards that because I wanted to ensure that that name was upheld. And
Yeah.
strange enough, the thing is that when my dad gave us his name, he gave us both his paternal and his maternal names. So that is how we ended up with
Mm-hmm.
Chester Innes. And there were only three
Mm-hmm.
Chester Inneses um, ever, right?
Mm.
Only three: my sister, myself, my brother. And so I took pride in the fact that I owned that. You know, I own that, even
That's a
though,
legacy.
yes, it's a legacy. And so,
That's a
I would,
legacy. Yeah.
yeah, I would tell my children, I said, you shouldn't be doing this. I mean, you're a Chester Innes. Come on, get your act together.
That's
And
right.
that is based on the historical context of that name. So, for me,
Mm-hmm.
it is both reputation, and it is also character, which is built, or character is built over time. It is
Mm-hmm.
a culmination of small moments. The what you do in those small moments when absolutely nobody is looking. That
Yeah.
is what kind of helps to build that person that you are. And even as I'm talking, I go back to well publicized issues of character and integrity, and good name. When Wall Street crashed a couple of years ago, prior to Wall Street crashing, prior to that crash, we know that there were certain people who were billionaires, who were
Mm-hmm.
people who were regarded as being honest, and they were influential and all of these things. But when the curtain was opened, and their secret activities, secret lives, unscrupulous business dealings, when all of those things were exposed, then you got to realize that all that glitters in gold, which is
Yeah.
something that is intertwined with what we're talking about here today. What really constitutes a good name is just, is it popularity, is it a quiet life built on honesty and so on. I think it's a quiet life built on honesty, but at the same time, you can be
Mm-hmm.
popular, but what you do with that popularity and so on is important. And these are, I think, meaningful considerations that we could have as we even have these conversations. And Kathy is saying that a good name represents you. It represents your reputation. It represents trust, being taken at your word,
Mm-hmm.
the respect and consideration given to you. Your name precedes you, and that is so true.
True.
Because when
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to be
Absolutely.
introduced even unknowingly as, hey, just be careful with that guy, he's kind of shady. You never want to be introduced.
Yeah, yeah. And you talk about nation building. You mentioned nation building in terms of name and reputation, in name recognition, John. And again, just given um, our background, it is same whether it's in school, whether it's at church,
Hmm.
whether it's in the community, or whether it's in the wider country, right?
Hmm.
So you hear certain names, and you already know what that means, what that represents, right? um not to mess with these people, not to mess with certain people because of the weight that their names carry,
Yeah.
right? And in terms of nation building, I have to think outside of our nation, and more of a global on a global level. The name Nelson Mandela comes to mind,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, here is a person, and this is where true character comes to light, right? Here's a man who spent almost 30 years in prison,
Hmm.
came out. He was never bitter, he was never angry, never looked for revenge, even when he had the opportunity to. He focused on rebuilding a nation, or in some ways, starting over, right?
Hmm.
Because of what his country represented. But he was a man of true character. But I also want to go back on another value that you mentioned, contentment. That is so important in
Yeah.
shaping one's life, right? I think yourself, you and myself, we had some similar, upbringing, where because of our circumstances we were encouraged to be contented with whatever little that we have. So that has been something that sat with me all my life. So
Hmm.
even today, when I have the opportunity to get something for myself, I'm like, do I really need this? Don't I have enough? And sometimes, in all honesty, I look in my closet and I feel ashamed because there's stuff in there that, you know, I don't need. And when I didn't have any, when I had to come home, from school, and wash the same uniform to wear the next day,
Next day.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you wear one set of clothes. I had one shirt and pants for this week to go to church, and then another and you keep rotating them, and now you go in your closet and you can't decide what to
Absolutely.
wear.
Hmm.
you know um John, just want to say, I know we have 6 viewers right now. I just want to remind our viewers that unfortunately our guest that was scheduled today had a minor medical incident that uh, wouldn't have allowed her to be on. So we just want to apologize for that. But we are grateful that you're here with us.
Absolutely
Thank you
grateful.
for joining us this morning.
Uh-huh. And
Um,
please remember to
I know.
share our live stream as well.
Um, there are some comments there, John. I think Faith is saying that one of your comments, that you talked about Wall Street, reminded her about Martha Stewart. Yeah, that's a name that, again, in public, we thought was somebody of good repute,
Hmm.
and then we saw certain things
Hmm.
coming out that made you question her true character. And
Mhm.
another person was someone I know the first name was Paul. I can't remember the last name, but she was doing a cooking show,
Oh
and then
yes,
it
yes.
was
Paula
revealed that
Dean,
she
I
made
think.
all these
I think
racist
yeah.
comments.
Paula Dean, I
Paula
think
Dean,
that
thank you,
yeah,
thank
yeah.
yes, yeah,
But which brings me to the
that
question. I mean,
had.
we're all
Mhm,
human, right? And we don't want to bash anybody
mhm,
because we too can find ourselves in those situations. Trust me, we can all find
absolutely.
ourselves because we're all susceptible to the same
Mhm,
circumstances as these people. We're just using examples, and these are examples that are in the public
mhm,
domain. So please don't misconstrue what
correct.
we're trying to put over. And but
Mhm.
there's so these people have rebranded themselves. Is there a
That I
thing
was
like
just about to make
rebranding
that
your
point.
character? Like,
Yes.
can you do that? Can you rebrand your character?
Well, I would say no. But going back to your earlier point when you said you disagreed with me,
Mm-hmm.
um, you can rebrand your reputation, and this is now your point is being
Mm,
more clear in my mind now. You can rebrand your reputation, but you can't rebrand your character. Who you are,
mm,
your character is who you are at your core,
yes.
right? You can so who you are, you can't change who you are,
Right.
right? That's who you are, and that's built over time. That is
Mhm.
built based on experiences. You can't just change that, but you can do things to make people think that you have good character.
Mhm.
But your character is who you are, and again, like we said earlier, your true character will reveal when you're put to the test, when you're
Yeah.
put through the fire. How would you come out? Would you come out shining like gold, or would the
Mm,
dross still be
mm.
seen?
But let's go back to your the premise of this
Mhm.
conversation, like what's in a good name. So um, having a good name doesn't mean that you're perfect, right? Let us make sure that we put that out there.
Right,
Um,
right.
but we can certainly strive for perfection, but it doesn't mean that you're perfect, right? Perfect people make mistakes, and even when you're trying to be perfect,
Mhm.
you will make mistakes. So the difference is what happens after you make those mistakes, right? What
Six, yes.
remedial um, actions have you taken, to sort of put yourself in a better place post
Hmm.
mistakes? And so we don't want to, at least I don't, and I know maybe you don't either, don't want to give anybody the impression that having a good name means being perfect, because we're not perfect. We live in societies where, I mean, we do things that may tarnish not just our reputation but our character from time to time. And
Hmm.
so we don't want to ever make that mistake in saying that, you
Yeah.
know, having a good name means being the absolute perfect that any human being can aspire to.
Hmm.
Um, and so, but my point is that you know people can make mistakes, and that's because none of us are perfect. The issue is
Right.
whether we make excuses for those mistakes we make, whether we blame people for those mistakes we make, whether
Hmm.
we are
Hmm.
accountable to ourselves for those mistakes we make. I think that is the crucial thing that really determines, even as we make mistakes, even as we protect our names, even as we talk about having character, reputation. Those are the meaningful questions that we
Hmm.
ask ourselves when we find that we are in those situations where we make those mistakes while aspiring to have good names, right? So
Yeah.
and that brings me to this point of reputation. Reputation can be lost very quickly. We've already gone
Hmm.
through, those public examples that we've already named. People who were known because of their niche industry, and they were trusted and so on. And we're not saying that maybe Nelson Mandela did not have moments where he might have made mistakes or errors in judgment, but were those enough to tarnish his character? I believe not. I mean, we
Right.
look at his life. This guy suffered during the period of apartheid in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, when he um, ascended to power, we saw what he was really made of, and for a lot of in contemporary politics and in contemporary situations,
Mm-hmm.
we might not find that happening a whole lot because people are humans, we're all humans, and so
Yeah.
you will obviously find um, opportunity to get back at your opponents when you are in their positions. And I know I might be going off track, but this book comes to mind that I read during maybe the first year of my studies while I was at university. It's the book The Prince by
Mm-hmm.
Machiavelli. And if you ever want to get into or understand the psyche of somebody who um, retaliates when or acts a certain way when they're in power, read that book. You'd understand the sort of like the
Mm-hmm.
nature of the human mind and the ability of humans to
Mm-hmm.
really destroy um, the core of their I don't even know if I should say the core of their character because that is all it's subjective, right? It is
Yeah.
relative, right?
Yeah.
It is dependent on the character of the person, the true character of the person. But you know, indeed, as Faith is saying, reputation can be rebranded. You can make amends,
Rebranded.
publicly
Mm-hmm.
apologize, but good character is embedded. But I want to say in this world in which we live, um, even as people try to portray a certain reputation out there, I want to believe that reputation is driven by one's character. So, but I may be wrong. There might be a gap in my thinking right now, and um, let
Or
me say,
maybe
establish
motives. Maybe
sense.
motives
Maybe
is
motives,
you
perhaps.
know. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
maybe motives. Yeah,
But let me jump in here quickly to John. And I'm thinking when you were talking, maybe we should have studied Nelson Mandela a little more to have this conversation,
yes, yes.
because before you talked, you mentioned that book and stuff. I know Nelson Mandela have at least two books. And both of the names are slipping from my memory, but one of them I think was letters from prison. Um, and you mentioned that he wasn't a perfect man, and that's why I'm mentioning this, because in that book, he mentioned his failures as a father to his
Yes,
children,
yes,
right?
yes.
And so again, he wasn't a perfect man because he made some mistakes, he had some failures,
Mhm,
but he was a good
mhm.
man. He
But
was a
we can
man of
still
good
say he had
character.
character. We can still say he had character.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah,
because
maybe
the,
his
the
public
failures,
life.
the failure,
Uh-huh.
the failures that he made, at least that he mentioned, he talked about that he made as a father, were not one of total neglect as
Mm.
someone abandoning their children.
Mhm.
It was because he was so engrossed in the work of trying to make
Yeah, it's
others' lives
circumstantial.
meaningful,
It was
right? And I think
circumstantial.
a lot of us can find ourselves in that situation where
Mhm.
we feel that the work we're doing is so important that we neglect our own families at a time, and that happens so often,
Mhm.
right? um so we have to be careful of that. Again, we're
Mhm.
not talking about perfect people.
Mhm.
We're just talking about people of good character. Um,
Absolutely.
mhm.
But what
So
do you think?
why does
Uh,
this all matter? Mhm.
let me
Go
ask
ahead. Go
you
ahead.
before you do that. Let me ask you, and it's good to have such a free flowing conversation. What is
Yeah.
when we think about a good name, like what something must form the foundation of a good name, right?
Hmm.
Outside of outside of character, um, outside of reputation, like there must be, I think, maybe something deeper that is connected to having a good name. I believe there must be
Hmm.
something deeper, something that maybe forms the foundation of having a good name. But let's have your question first, and maybe we can think about it.
Well, the question is, why does a good name matter today? And maybe we can just ask the question, why a good name matters, period.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Um, and so when we ask this question, it ties into to what you're asking there. What is the foundation? What is the core
Mm-hmm.
of someone's character, um, for a good name? And I can think of things like integrity,
Yes, yes.
trustworthiness,
Mm-hmm. Honesty.
right? Dependence,
Mm-hmm.
honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think, and I'm saying all these things, and I have a picture in my head of of a person, um, you know, I'm thinking of my grandfather. Let me just, I'm thinking of
Well,
my
I'm thinking
grandfather,
about my
right?
grandmother. I'm thinking about
Right?
my grandmother.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
and we don't have to go too far out. We
Uh-huh.
right in our own families,
Yeah.
we can find people. I'm automatically, when we talk about having a good name, my grandfather is the only
Mm-hmm.
person that is in my
Mm-hmm.
head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, throughout our community, like, you mentioned the name, and everybody knows who Richie
Yes.
Mitchell
Yes.
is,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
In the whole of the district, the area where we lived, everybody knows Richie Mitchell,
Mm.
right? They know he's a man of character. They know that when there's a funeral and they want somebody to come preach, that is the man to call, right?
Mm.
They know when there's a dispute in the family, you want somebody to come help settle the dispute, he's the man to
Mm-hmm.
call,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so his name, so and you talk about name dropping. You go someplace, and you want to get in some place.
Oh,
All I had to say
absolutely.
was, I'm Richie Mitchell grandson, and that's it.
Uh-huh.
I I remember, John, one time we were having what we refer to as crusades, in one of the villages, Litchfield, and we were walking from Golden Fleece to Litchfield, and there was a certain man in the village that we used to trouble, had a false name, and we
Mm.
used to trouble him, and we were right in front of the police station, and we couldn't get past, and he was threatening to, because we wouldn't pass, for him to retaliate. He said he was going to go to the police station and report us. Well, I know nothing would have been done, but one of the guys that was with us was his nephew, and he went to him and said, he called his name and said, cousin Richie grandson, man, leave him alone. And the man just left, and we were able to go our way.
Mm.
So the name, the Mitchell brand, carried
Mm-hmm.
weight in the
Mm-hmm.
community,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we were able to use that name to, to our advantage,
Mm-hmm.
whether for good or for bad.
Yeah, yeah,
But
absolutely.
and yeah, and my uncle tell this story about, being, waiting for transportation, and a person, a driver, um passing by, saw him and stopped and picked him up, and he said, the only reason I stopped for you is because you're cousin Richie's son.
Mm.
So the name carried some weight,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was because of the character of the person,
Yeah.
right? And that is what we are talking about. That's
Mm-hmm.
why a good name matters, because it
Mm-hmm.
comes with benefits, and not just because you want um to mooch off of people, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
but because it helps to build community, it helps to build a nation, as you mentioned earlier, right? Think about it. If you have people like my grandfather, your grandmother, Nelson Mandela, and all the other people of good character that we don't know about, if we have those people doing their little part in their part of the world, their part of the village, the community, can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine what the world is going to be? That's why I
Absolutely.
think it matters,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know,
And let me
and
put
why
a
it
plug
matters
here.
today.
Yeah, let me just put
Mhm.
a plug here because um, this is the very reason why you and I started this podcast to talk about values. And so
Yes,
we look
yes.
at foundational values. And so, when we talk about the foundation of what constitutes a good name, you mentioned honesty, integrity, and all of those things earlier. I think those things are what really um, what really drives having a good name. Once you have those ingredients
Mhm.
in your life, and once those ingredients comprise your character, I think those are the characteristics that you need to really have a good name. And I just wanted to put a plug here that even as we're having these conversations,
Mhm.
that we consider it's good to do introspection, right? That we consider, like, what am
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
doing? Am I just like creating a facade for the world to see, for the
Mhm.
world to see me a certain way, or is this really who I am as a person? Is that what makes me intrinsically unique as a person? Having good character, something
Mhm.
that precedes you. Because I'm sure that, you know, once you are going through this journey of life, you want a good name to precede you. And it is always dependent in cases on probably what our foreparents left for us, the good
Mhm.
name our foreparents left for us. But it's also
Mhm.
dependent on our response to that good name that they've left for us. Our response, like, what is our responsibility? Is our responsibility to kind of, you use the word mooch, is that it,
Mhm.
of that good
Yeah.
name? Or
Yeah.
do we have like a collective responsibility as people ourselves to sort of develop our own character and build on what was left before us? I think those are important as well, and like how we treat people too. Having reputable ideals are noteworthy, but like how do we treat people too? You know, earlier in the program you talked about um, how we see people, right? And um,
Mhm.
as you were talking, I remember one experience I had with a politician, and I admire that politician. And we were both at an event one evening, and I remember trying to have a conversation with that politician, and the level of rebuff that I got, it was like, are you kidding me? Is this the level of respect that you give to somebody, especially you're
Mm.
trying to seek public office, you've sought public office, and is this the respect that you have for an ordinary person? Like, how would you operate when you acquire higher
Yeah.
office? And that is something that is, every time I see that person, that is something that I'm constantly reminded of, the treatment that was received by me vis-a-vis how I saw
Mhm.
that person. I saw that person as a leader, But trust me, that person did not come over to me as a leader when I had an opportunity to try to interact with that person. So
Yeah.
my response is when, because this person is still operating in the public sphere, right? My response is when
Mm-hmm.
this person fails in the public sphere, or the person has something to say, like I'm less enthusiastic when it comes to that person. And so my point is, we're talking about what's in a good name, issues of character and issues of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you are um, when you when you are proposing to the world that you have a good name, when you are saying to the world that you're a person of character and integrity, how you treat people, right?
Mm-hmm.
How
Mm-hmm.
your relationships with people strengthen them. Is it building that person up? Is it inspiring to that person? Or are you also humble? And that's a big one,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Mm-hmm.
exercising
Mm-hmm.
humility in the midst of your um you being this person who is highly reputable in your field? Are you a humble person? And those things matter. Those things matter to me, at least, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
as we consider the what's in a good name question, it is a deeper conversation, I believe, in compassion, in respect, in humility, in and my mind is going to the fruits of the spirit here. I'm now bringing in religion into
Mm-hmm.
this, which can undergird this discussion that we're having. Are you showcasing these attributes? And if not, it's and even for us too. Hopefully this conversation causes us to reflect as well.
Mm-hmm.
What are we projecting to the world?
So
How does the world see us? Is that really reflective of who we truly are? So, you know, we go back to somebody that most of us can relate with, Nelson Mandela. And
mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how many of us saw different um, depictions of Nelson Mandela in movies and all of that, but he was a person who brought the world together because his
Together.
characters
Yeah.
form in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of 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 um of deep and lasting um persecution, right? His character withstood all of that. And you talk about reputation fades, right? It can fade if you lose a job. It can fade if you lose a title.
Mm-hmm.
It can fade if you lose friends. It fades when the curtains open and the world sees who you really are, the mask that you've been
Mm.
hiding behind.
Mm.
And so we look at somebody that we can relate to, Nelson Mandela. um, and and we see how he responded, how his attitude did not change when he got power. How after he left the halls of power, he deliberately did that. He didn't hold on to power. He wasn't power hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-hmm.
still respected the statesman that he was long after he left the halls of power, and that says something about his character. That says something
Yeah.
about how humble he was. People was able to relate with and to him. And I believe that if there is a life to be studied that is of good character, we can. And there are other people too. There is Mother Teresa of Calcutta. There is Mahatma Gandhi.
Yes. Yeah.
We're just singling out a few, and
Mm-hmm.
these are well-known names. Like, um,
Right.
these are people of good character. They put themselves last, and they put the world in front of them, and they were able to create a society that was better. And you did ask a question earlier that maybe we weren't able to delve into a little. I hope I can remember exactly what it is. But the point I wanted to
Well,
make when I asked that question was
uh-huh.
a lot of leaders today across the spectrum of society, they are self proclaimers of themselves, right? If you get what I'm saying, that doesn't make their reputation true. It's just
Right, right.
trying to gloss over their imperfections, and so hopefully they too can emulate these people that um,
Yeah.
we've highlighted today.
Yeah, so the question is, or the crux of the matter is, why does it all matter,
A
right?
good
Why
name.
does a good name matter? Well, I want to target the younger generation with this, right? A good name matters for a lot of reasons, right? It matters because it would show who you really are at the core.
Mm-hmm.
It matters because it reflects how you treat people. A good name matters because it might provide you an opportunity to get into spaces that you might not otherwise have gotten
Absolutely.
into, right? That job, that promotion, right? That business deal or something, right? It open up opportunities for you, right? It matters because it would speak to the legacy that you would leave behind when you are gone. Look at us talking about Nelson Mandela, who's been
Mhm.
long gone.
Long
Mother
gone.
Teresa, Mahatma
Yep.
Gandhi, long, even long before Mandela, they have been gone, right? And so it matters because it allows for collaboration, right? It allows for building and rebuilding. It matters for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the importance of this conversation, it is because we have seen in our lifetime, and in our current time, how a good name or a good character has been eroded by the public display of certain individuals. And so, John, I want the younger generation, anyone young who is listening, who might come across this podcast, this conversation, to take pause and to really think about why are they living the life they're
Mm-hmm.
living.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what am I living for,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the song says, what am I living for? Like, and so we have to take pause and ask, because it matters, right? Because it creates trust, it creates credibility and stability, right? And like I said before, it open up doors and opportunities for us to make inroads, and to make things happen in certain spaces that otherwise would not have happened, right? So it
Absolutely.
matters.
And
and, and,
and the
and so I'm
story is
glad that
being
we're
written
having
right
this
now, right?
conversation today.
Mm-hmm. The story is being written right now.
Hmm.
You talk about speaking to young people to remind them that their stories are being written right now, and
Hmm.
every opportunity must be taken to kind of build that story. And it's not the big
Yeah.
things, it's the very small things, like what do you do in the small moments and the quiet moments of this experience. And so hopefully, as we come to a close, those who come across this podcast will be reminded that a good name is built on character, it's built on consistency, it is built on compassion. All right. I think these are some of the core things. And of course, in all these can encapsulate a whole lot of value, um, of things that are intrinsic to values. And so, you know, We also want to take pause again to remind those who have joined us today that today we were supposed to have actually had Ms. Cathy Lewis Butler, a veteran educator, youth worker, somebody who is experienced in social work, a current assistant principal in the District of Columbia Public Schools. However, unfortunately, because of a medical issue that she's unable to, she's going to be well and she's fine, fine enough to have come on the program today, but she was concerned that she would not have been able to give it 100%. And we want to keep her in our thoughts and in our prayers, and we hope that as soon as she's fully recovered, that she will be able to join us on our podcast. And we do have some guests who have already confirmed, and we will have some extremely well thought out conversations with those guests, and it's going to be power packed. And so we ask that if you come across this podcast, share it with a friend, share it with a family member, so that we can all build a community in which we all feel a sense of belonging, and we can all make this world a better place. Today, we discussed what's in a good name. Irvin, I think we had a very good conversation. We just have about three or so more.
Yes, yes.
And so, do you want to close out for us?
So before we close out, John, I know you talk about your surname Chester Innes, but do you know what your first name mean?
I have to. I haven't. It's not something I remember. Let me say that.
Okay. I don't know either. I know someone looked it up sometime and told me something, but I
Mhm.
can't remember what it is. So I don't know, but hopefully our names are good names.
Oh yes.
Um,
And I
you know.
even when I was choosing names for my children, we chose names that had meaning, names that were strong, names that could
Mhm.
take them through life. So um, it was well intentioned and very
Yeah.
intentional the choices I that we made when we chose those names for our children.
And that is important, and that is something we didn't touch on. I know our conversation is mostly based on character and all that stuff,
Hmm.
but the choices of names that we give our children should be done thoughtfully and
Yeah,
carefully,
yeah,
not just because everybody's naming their children a certain thing, and
yeah,
because you know so many Yannets and so many Desrees, and you want to give your child a unique name, but be intentional about the names you choose for your children.
yeah. That's a
And
good point.
yeah, yeah.
That's a
Go
good
ahead,
point.
go ahead, John.
No, I'm saying I'm thinking as you're talking that it's become a cultural stigma where certain names
Hmm.
are associated, but I think it's probably a conversation that we could maybe engage in one of our psychologist friends and to see the impact of
Hmm.
the names and associations, not just the names, but the things we say to our children as well. That gives them a name as well, right? But I think that maybe we can have that as a topic of our conversation at on one of
Yeah,
our
yeah.
podcasts.
Good, good, good. So friends, thank you again for joining us. Just want to challenge you. Build a good name, build a good legacy. You may lose your job, you may lose your title, you may lose your money, but you will never lose your name. To our listeners and viewers, we thank you for listening. This has been Values Unpacked. So stay curious, stay grounded, and keep unpacking the values that shape your life. We look forward to being with you next time, next episode. Please do remember to share the podcast on your various platforms and support the work that we are doing. by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Values Unpacked. Until then, this has been Values Unpacked. See you next time.
See you. Thank you for joining us.